I've been married for 33 years. I have 3 kids, and they all live in Richmond, Virginia, which is where I come from. I've been here for almost 7 years. We own Finnegan's restaurant in Buxton, North Carolina, arguably the closest business to the point. And right outside the door here, we have the Cape Point, which is the most premier surf fishing spot on the East Coast, which is at the moment closed, and has been closed since I think mid-April this year. This is late June. You might say we wound up with a bit of an empty nest syndrome ourselves, and we just kind of wanted to be someplace else and do something different, and this opportunity presented itself to us. For us, it was a dream come true to be in our spot, you know.
Hal, how do you feel about the fact that your tax dollars ultimately are paying for a federal agency that puts the manufactured well-being of a bird over your own future?
Raped. I mean, I feel completely and totally and utterly let down. What my government has done to me is almost the same as what I see happening to the American Indians over the years. I mean, they're just shutting me down. Taking things away. My tax dollars are not helping me at all. My tax dollars are being used to crush me.
This was just a job at first. I had a chance to shoot a video about beaches that were being closed for environmental reasons. But soon after getting down there, I would realize that this wasn't about beaches. It was about people. People who deserved better than they were getting. The kind of people that I imagined founded this country. Hard-working, salt-of-the-earth people who were respectful of their heritage and proud of their roots in this place. For generations, these people and their predecessors had overcome countless storms, hurricanes, floods, and anything else that can come at you when you live naked to the elements 30 miles off the North Carolina mainland in the Atlantic. But with all that these people had fought in the past, they were now facing the biggest natural challenge in several generations. And that challenge had come to them in the form of a bird. The piping plover.
I am very angry at what has happened to this community here. People are suffering economically. They are suffering personally. This is really a difficult time period for this island. I am begging and pleading for anybody to help us here.
Some people might not understand this whole thing really started with a beach driver on the Oregon Inlet Spit.
When you get a ticket out on the beach, you have to respond to the federal court, and that's where his case went to Judge Terrence Boyle. Judge Boyle was just livid because he says that this is typical of people coming into his court that are out there breaking the law.
In 1975, President Nixon had charged that all national parks have a plan for off-road vehicles. This particular case brought to light the fact that the Cape Hatteras National Seashore Park didn't have an ORV plan in the law books.
The environmentalists found this out. They sued, and then we had another critical habitat.
Judge Boyle had said right there that he is going to go ahead and give injunctive relief to the plaintiffs, which were the environmentalists, and pretty essentially go ahead and do away with ORV driving.
If any of these go through, the use of four-wheel drives on Hatteras Island's history.
ORV access and pedestrian access, they're one and the same. The judge was just absolutely uncaring. If we were there, or even if we weren't there, that's okay.
Emboldened by their newfound power, the environmental groups launched a social and economic assault on the people of Hatteras Island.
For 32 years of doing this, I've been told by Park Service that I'm young enough to go out and find and learn to do something else. I don't know anything else except fishing tackle.
The people who come down and go fishing with me in the spring and in the fall, every one of them are beach fishermen. They are not going to come to this island to fish with me one day and then hang out in a cottage or a motel for the rest of the time.
And Park Service and the environmentalists sit up yonder and say, there's no harm. You know, it's just a few tackle shop owners and a few people that are hurt. And it's just a damn lie.
I don't know how 9 pairs of birds can shut down a total economy for an island. It's hard enough to make it here as it is.
I know people that were born and raised on this island that have moved away that never thought they would ever have to move away from their home.
Right now, my house is, I've been fighting foreclosure on my house for, since November. I had to lay everybody off, everybody.
I've been here 23 years. I would hope that some of my family could take it over and pay me rent that I could retire with. This is my 401k.
Every summer I lose $30,000.
How much would you say your business is off because of this?
I'd say 40%.
My business is off 40% this year. I'm down 4 employees. You don't think it doesn't hurt? Go out and look at anybody that works with you or for you. Go ahead and say, I'm sorry, you don't have a job anymore.
It's not only the business being down, but it's also having that threat of we might close it down.
You just don't know the suffering and anguish, the mental anguish that this has bestowed upon us.
This is a tough time worldwide economically. There's going to be great international competition for resources. And if our country's hands are tied by legislation that is misdirected and not doing what it should do, we're going to fall short.
Your tax dollar is being used to pay lawyers to sue you to close the beaches down and everything else. It's not right. It's just not right.
That's not the government my husband fought World War II for.
After this interview, we packed up and began heading out. As we reached the door, Carol called after our group. "Please help us," she said. It wasn't the last time we'd hear a similar plea.
There is nothing in the proposed plan which will increase the habitat available to the birds anyway. Even a total closure, a total prohibition of all driving into the park will not add 1 square foot of habitat.
These are aerial photographs taken in May of this year that show the closures at Cape Point.
All this vegetation right here, the dunes that never existed before, until they put the enclosures up and they stopped people from driving out here.
Years ago, when this area was a very successful nesting habitat for shorebirds and piping plovers, there was no vegetation in these areas. Then the Park Service started to close off the interior of Cape Point for wintering birds, and the vegetation grew.
They want to force them closer to the ocean, closer to ocean overwash, closer for the predators to get them. It's a complete disaster for the shorebirds to nest.
Those things could be corrected, but there's no interest in doing that except from the access-minded people.
The birds have effectively found other places to nest, and the environmentalists are blaming the ORV community for chasing the birds out of the area, when in fact it's because of Park Service's management of the areas, or mismanagement of it.
One of the issues I have with the beach being closed is the birds that are not endangered, they're actually on the concerned list, are getting the same status, the same protection as the birds that are endangered.
There are more birds over in where people live than there were before, all along this ridge that I live on here in Buxton.
In any management scenario, there has to be a clear separation between the science and the management. That does not happen here. It's the same people.
I'm a former science teacher, and all of my life I was taught that decisions should be based on fact and on reason. And when I see some of the pseudo-science, BS science, whatever you want to call it, that obviously isn't science, and I look at the kids that are growing up here, and I know that they're looking at that, and I ask myself, how can the teachers, how can their parents, how can anyone make them believe that science is anything other than politics?
The community, as it grows in the next 10 years, hates Park Service. I've got blessed to have a 4.5-year-old young son. I was late in life having a son. He said a blessing the other day. He said, "Dear Lord, bless Mommy, bless Daddy, bless my grandparents, but Lord, will you kill some of those damn birds?"
Turns out if Bob's son had gotten his wish, those dead plovers would have had company.
I was late in life having a son. He said a blessing the other day. He said, "Dear Lord, bless Mommy, bless Daddy, bless my grandparents. But Lord, will you kill some of those damn birds?
Turns out if Bob's son had gotten his wish, those dead plovers would have had company.
There's tons of predators out there, and their solution to all this is to kick the people off the beach, kick the vehicles off the beach, and then trap and kill any of the predators that are out there.
They have literally killed thousands of animals.
When you go to bed at night, the traps are getting set. When you wake up in the morning, they're killing the animals.
The lady that goes to my church actually was there with her children when they saw this Park Service kill this fox on the beach.
And they say foxes aren't native to here. How do they know what's native here?
When you remove a predator from any environment, things get out of balance.
I witness the trapper daily in this park. Two types of leg traps that indiscriminately will trap any kind of animal. Who's to say a bird might not get caught in it, or somebody's pet? This has happened.
We have actually seen traps with feet left in them, where the animals have gnawed their foot off to get out of the trap.
I just can't even really believe that this is happening in the United States of America.
There's some lady in Kansas right now, 78 years old, reading the paper that says, there they go, they're running through the dunes, they're riding over bird nests, or they're killing this, or doing that. There's nobody doing anything like that out here, and some poor lady in Kansas is getting fooled again. She's sitting there writing Audubon a check.
These Audubon people, the defenders, call themselves defenders of wildlife and are out there being the cause of hundreds of other wildlife being killed. It just doesn't make sense.
Killing hundreds of animals in the name of preservation doesn't make sense. Implementing harsh restrictions that have proven to be ineffective, even environmentally damaging, doesn't make sense. And if it's so critical to keep people and vehicles off of these beaches, if the damage it does to a bird is so irreparable, then why is it okay for the park services and environmental groups to walk and drive within the enclosures? It makes you wonder what's really going on.
We're in our second lawsuit. The first one we won. It was sent back.
They believe, and this is their foundation belief, that the animal should have rights over the people. They've given animals rights and taken it over the people.
You've got a bureaucracy and Park Service that is rolling right over my community. They do not care.
They're here more of a harassment than they are to do anything for the environment.
Yeah, but they're getting more extremist, more militant. It's
more anti-people.
Because I've always been, a law-abiding citizen. I've never felt any harm or anything like that towards anybody at all. But I'm the one that's being misused and abused in this scenario.
It is an opportunity to slow down business, to take over property, and to do away with people's rights.
It's kind of a sad thing, when you feel like you're not part of the government. But, especially when you watch the news and you hear the public referred to as civilians.
To be called a visitor, I find exceedingly offensive, given that I have 4 generations buried in family cemeteries, and that my ultimate final wish is to be buried in my family cemetery, so that when my island washes away, I go with it.
This island, to me, is my home. The people here are my family.
You have to think that maybe the other side has a dual agenda sometimes. So that lends again to the thought process that they're all hand in hand trying to just do away with us.
We all feel like we're getting squeezed out.
I mean, I went to the early bird meetings very early on and heard the Audubon get up in front of the town folk and say that they wanted to see the beaches closed.
Their goal is to close the entire beach, the Audubon Society.
Year-round, from Oregon Inlet to Ocracoke Inlet. This is what they want. This is what they've said. I've heard them say it. Maybe they're just trying to get rid of us, or maybe they're just trying to turn it into a bird sanctuary or something like that.
This is not a bird refuge. They have the National Peak Island Wildlife Refuge right up there.
When you start killing everything and removing everything else except the bird, what else can we think? Right now, the future is so unknown, so uncertain for us all.
I would like to say to you that I'm comfortable that I'll be here 5 years from now, but I'm not.
We all kind of feel like that something's going to happen tomorrow. They're going to pass some new law or something like that, or something's going to happen that's going to, affect us all and get us out of here.
For Hatteras Island people, the beach is our habitat also. The beach is what gets the tourists here. The tourist brings us money. For us to be able to live on Hatteras Island and to survive here, we need the beach to be open.
To sit here and watch a community destroyed, if I had to move away from here because nobody could survive or the Audubon Society just keeps wanting to destroy us, what is their agenda? Do they want to turn it into their little private park?
We can work with the animals. We can all have that habitat together. But the balance has been shifted now.
This park was put here, it was created, it was enabled by Congress to be a recreational area. It was said, this is here for the recreation for people of the United States. It's not that. The future envisioned by Park Service and the bureaucrats is going to be without people.
I just can't even fathom moving away from here. This is my home, and this is my life, and it's hard to even imagine having to move away from here.
But imagine it. You guys, everything's packed up, you're in the car, and you're crossing that bridge for the last time. You know it's the last time. And everything is behind you. Where are you if that ever happens?
I'm a crushed soul. Yeah. I'm a crushed soul, that's what I am.
Kim could be my sister, your daughter, your neighbor's wife, your best friend's mom. These people are your family. Americans. Decent people who were minding their own business when an agenda-driven group of opportunists muscled their way onto Hatteras Island and drew a target on this community's back in the name of the environment. A noble cause by name, but the actions don't make the cut. Wrong is wrong no matter what flag you're flying. Are these people careless with their environment? You heard for yourself how well they're doing without it. What do they stand to gain to abuse it? And where's the proof of that abuse after generations of living here? I'm just a guy from New York. I don't fish, I don't boat, I don't recreate on beaches, I don't do causes. But I care about these people. And they're running out of time. Maybe it's time to do something. Because if we don't help these people, who's going to be around to help you or me when it's our turn to weather a blow?
It's easy to see why you take it from me. Beauty is so deep, take it for your own. When we come together, no matter of the weather, no one has a right to take our home. So we're taking it back. Never gonna give it up. We're taking it back. Never gonna give it up. Yeah. 'Cause we're taking it back. You ain't got the right to take away our home. Never gonna give it up. To take away our home. Yeah, we're taking it back. You ain't got the right to take away our home. Never gonna give it up. To take away our home. So we're taking it back. You ain't got the right to take away our home. Never gonna give it up. To take away our home. We're taking it back. You ain't got the right to take away our home. Never gonna give it up. Never gonna give it up. We're taking it back. In April 2008, the government and other associations will try to stop Outer Banks residents and guests from accessing our own beaches. Fight for your right.
I'm Ryan Dawson. I'm a resident of Buxton and Cape Hatteras.
Our islands and way of life have been stripped away from us by an activist judge and a special interest group that doesn't live on the island. Judge Boyle had no right to even entertain this case. We have a precedent of open beaches since the 1920s. Closing down beaches on an island cannot have any result other than a disaster. And yet this is precisely what has happened without any compensation to the residents of the Outer Banks. This is the last thing we needed overlapping a nationwide recession. The pretext to close the beach is insincere, unscientific, asinine, and most of all, illegal. In the past, the federal government fought tooth and nail to create recreational parks on America's seashores to be enjoyed by the public. The original intent was to connect the historical sites of the Wright Brothers Memorial and the lighthouses together by a road, and to have the Park Service do what its name implies, service the park. The role of the Park Service was to provide access to the historic sites in the recreational area. They're supposed to be providing access, not limiting it. The large argument at the time wasn't framed as a debate between animals and people. The fight was between the government, who wanted a public beach unspoiled for all to use, and the private landowners who wanted to develop the beach for themselves. After the Florida land boom in the 1920s, the government set up research planners to create recreational lands reserved for the public's use, but not open to development. Completely separate from that issue was setting aside some land to be designated as wildlife preserve for animals. The Phipps family donated large plots of land to be used as a public beach and managed by the Park Service, whose initial role was building ramps and preventing erosion. How much this role has been reversed today is sickening. Cape Hatteras became one of 10 current national seashores. By definition, they are recreational parks. In fact, from 1940 to 1954, it was called the Cape Hatteras National Seashore Recreational Area. Recreational area was dropped from the title in 1954 because it was redundant, because National Seashore already was defined by the Park Service itself as a recreational area. Congress had passed a bill allowing limited hunting to be added to forms of recreation on the National Seashore for Cape Hatteras on the recommendation of a letter from the Secretary of Interior, Oscar Chapman, who was the director of Yellowstone. Pea Island was set aside as a wildlife refuge, and Hatteras and Ocracoke, aside from the land set aside for the villages and some land that was adjacent to Lowell and Monroe, was to become a recreational park or national seashore. For over 4 generations, people have been driving to Cape Hatteras and Ocracoke from as far away as Canada to enjoy the public beaches. Beach driving and certainly beach walking has been allowed the entire time without conflict. You can't even reach portions of the beach outside the villages around Buxton without a vehicle. You cannot retroactively change a national seashore into a wildlife reserve any more than you could change a wildlife reserve into a recreational beach. If good hunting or crabbing were suddenly discovered on Pea Island, that would not mean some hunting interest group could go grab a questionable judge and start hunting on the wildlife reserve, which has been as such for nearly a century. Likewise, a bird enthusiast cannot change a recreational park on an island where people already live and have their entire economy intrinsically tied to and say, no more going to the beach because I want a de facto wildlife reserve. There isn't any science to back the attacks on our civil liberties, only weak correlations of statistics which ignore numerous other variables and cherry-pick papers that aren't even subject to peer review, thus making them worthless.
How much longer do you have, Ryan? We don't yield time. How much longer do you have, Ryan?
I can speed through it.
About 2 minutes.
2 minutes? I'll skip it.
Go ahead and finish. Go. Yeah.
Thank you. As Americans, as humans, we have a right to our own beach, our heritage, and a massive part of our cultural way of life, as well as our economic lifeline. Same factions presenting the so-called science also issued a report claiming that there would be no economic impact from closing the beaches, which is completely laughable. Ask yourself if Central Park in New York would be closed down to the public if suddenly an albino squirrel were to be discovered living there. Driving on the beach is not hurting the piping plover. However, not driving on the beach is hurting plenty of other animals. If anything, the presence of people on the beach has been preventing natural predators from entering the area to kill birds and eat eggs. Now that Americans have been removed by the land, by the police state, the area must be patrolled constantly by Park Service workers who have been gassing and shooting thousands of other animals. The fox, raccoons, geese, and crabs and other natives have lost their beach as well as their lives. Furthermore, it has cost the taxpayers of the U.S. hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay the NPS to murder animals for being animals. What do they plan to do? Go on shooting possum and raccoon indefinitely until none are left? It's not like they can swim back to the islands. The whole island knows this issue has nothing to do with the birds. It's about economics. All across the nation, hiding behind environmental pretexts, the government is stealing public land in order to privatize them for profit. What the Park Service plans to do is take a formerly recreational area that was open to the public for free and start to police it and privatize it so they can issue permits and parking passes and make a handsome profit off it, just like they have our lighthouse. Our lighthouse used to be free to the public. Now they charge a fee, which goes to the general fund, and they keep the money. It doesn't help the needs of the island. Ocracoke, Hatteras Island, and Nags Head have been hit the hardest by this insane, highly irresponsible decision by a questionable federal judge. There's a reason laws come from Congress. Congress represents the people and the people's interests. Congress is elected and can be held responsible for bad decisions. That's why judges don't make laws, they only interpret if you break them. When you let them make laws, they skip the will of the people because judges are not elected and they can act like regional dictators. The will of the people in this area of North Carolina has been completely ignored because a judge has circumvented the lawmaking process by clinging to an obscure interpretation of one executive order by a president who was impeached. Impeachment. It sounds like a good word to me.
Thank you.
I had 30 more than I ran out of time. For you of the laws, as well as some unethical activity by Judge Boyle in the ethics laws dealing on cases that he had.
Thank you.
Bobby?
Here are the parts I skipped because of time constraints. Historically, the word raccoon, to scratch, was derived from the American Indians on Hatteras Island and incorporated into English. And now they're being killed off because to environmental groups an animal only has value if it's rare or if it can fly. All across the nation, hiding behind environmental pretexts, the government is stealing public land in order to privatize them for profit. And by privatize, I don't mean on the free market, I mean state ownership, also known as communism. What the Park Service plans to do, based on their own meetings and what they have already done in other areas such as Cape Cod, is to come to a compromise between the Americans and the non-indigenous unendangered birds. The goal is to control, not provide access to beaches. The island's problems are with government intervention, and the Park Service has been numerous. From burning down forests to displacing sand to fill in swamps from Navy bases, the government has added to the problem of beach erosion, not prevented it. The Audubon Society does not live here. If they want to sacrifice property or park to the birds, they can start with their own houses and businesses. No one should point to an area where other people live and say, I would like that for my personal playground a week out of the year, make it so. We cannot let interest groups with money trample over the civil rights of others just because they have a personal hobby. This is a common sense issue. The history of law is on our side, but what we have here is two wolves deciding the fate of a sheep. The National Park Service is not going to fight the Southern Environmental Law or the Audubon Society because they don't care. They want an excuse to turn public beach into their own moneymaker. We just want what's promised to us. The NPS is dragging its feet on purpose to try and fix something that wasn't broken. The environmental extremists have found a judge unethical enough to kill a recreational park enjoyed by millions of visitors and a staple to North Carolina's economy without any compensation. In fact, the islanders and its visitors had no say in the matter at all. The entire case hinges on an executive order by Nixon before I was born. The last time I checked, executive orders are not laws and they do not overturn laws. Congress makes the laws. The order states for the National Park Service to develop a plan for mountain trails that already had not our beach. And it's also only about ORVs. It says nothing about walking, and yet we're not allowed to walk on our beach either. They already have Pea Island. They can't have Hatteras Island and Ocracoke Island as well. Since closing down the beaches, the bird populations have dropped 20%, and the island is now enjoying a 30% unemployment rate. 30%. We need help from Congress to either reinforce the original law or to pass a new law that opens our beaches for the public as they were designed to be. The bird will be fine, as it has been for the last 50 years with people in the park. Presence of people in the park did not harm the bird. There is no science to show any correlation between people walking on the beach and bird populations. The bird populations correlate to storms and hurricanes. Now their populations have dropped because the predators have returned because there aren't any people in the park. It's a no-brain situation. But once again, with the Park Service and the government trying to manage the environment the way they've botched it in Yellowstone and many other parks, they've done nothing but create a disaster. People are going out of business on the island. Visitors can no longer enjoy the park. Locals can no longer enjoy the park. This is a civil liberties issue. It's a constitutional issue with the judge using an executive order to overturn the law. And it's an American issue. This is your national park. This isn't just about North Carolina. This could be your backyard soon too.